Hello and welcome. Today we are interviewing Annita Clarke. It should be great fun, so let's just get started. Annita, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit for us?
I'm Annita Clarke. I'm a resident in Luton. I have a couple of children, both sort of 19 and 20 at the moment, and I'm an ex-police officer. So that's who I am.
So you mentioned you had children in Warden Hill Scout Group. In your opinion, what impacts did scouting have on them? And were these changes, if there were any, easily visible?
Okay, so I've worked a lot with children, and I know from my own experience that children have their own characters. We all have a different character, and my children have obviously individual characters. Olivia, it was always very confident, less so for Matthew. So in the beginning, Olivia kind of flourished in the Scouts, and Matthew was a little bit slow to pick up how good the Scouts was. Matthew stayed in the Scouts for a while, and it built his confidence. He was able to go to the Scout meetings in the evening and went to a few camps, which was great. And that built his confidence as well. And the Scout leaders were brilliant. They were really, really inventive, and they helped the parents to be included, which obviously would have put Matthew and his fellow Scouts at ease. It's really good because the Scouts have similar values to our home values. So things like kindness, self-efficiency, empathy, and being really confident. Those are things that are only for children, but for later on. And I think Matthew has gained all of those skills. With Olivia, she had a number of those skills already, but she's enhanced them by being with the Scouts. And she not only has now grown out of the Scouts and become an explorer and now a Cub Scout leader, but she also, both of them actually go to university, but because she believes so strongly in the Cub Scout leading, she comes back from you just to go to the Cub Scout meetings, which I think it just shows that sort of that commitment and her passion for scouting. So I think being in the Scouts has enabled them to be self-sufficient. They've both gone away from home to be in university and survived. So that's been excellent. And they have maintained those incredible values that were stronger at home but in the Scouts. So I'm eternally grateful for the Scouts for that.
Wonderful, thank you. So in your latest book, Abby Carter and the Collision of Minds, Abby is described as a popular teenage girl, sought-after sports player, loving sister, and loyal friend. Was there any personal inspiration behind it, or is the character based on anyone you know yourself?
Okay, so I didn't really base Abby Carter on anyone in particular. But it's quite clear that these that we go through, whether they're as an adult or a child, do affect who you are. And the characters within my book have kind of absorbed some of those experiences, and some of the choices that they make reflect some of my own experiences. So just as a bit of an overview about myself, which might indicate to those who've read the book how they have influenced the character. I grew up in Manchester. We were incredibly poor. Really, really poor. I was deaf as a child, completely deaf. I went to a deaf school. Never learned to read or write, but I learned how to sign. Then I went to state school when I was 8 because I'd had about 12 operations on my ears. So when I went to state school, I had hearing aids and a big battery on a harness. So I was bullied from the moment I stepped into state school, and it was relentless. My father had multiple sclerosis. I never saw him walk. He was always in a wheelchair. And I was kept off school to look after him. I was 14 when he died, and he was 38 when he died. my relationship with my mum was fraught. We didn't get on. It was horrible. So there was, apart from having my sister at home, who I love dearly, there was nobody there. So I left home when I was 18 and I moved to Bedfordshire. Now, I had a picture of England and Wales. I closed my eyes and I pressed on that map. And under my finger was Bedfordshire. And that's why I came to Bedfordshire. It wasn't for any loyalty or anything. I'd never been here. So I picked up and moved to Bedfordshire, which is over 100 miles away from home, at 18. It was a really tough decision because I wanted to stay at home to look after my sister. I needed to get away. When I moved to Luton, I knew nobody. I had nothing. And I joined the police, and the police became my family. Had it not been for them, I don't know what would have happened. So Luton features really heavily in my book because I'm proud to have lived here for 31 years. I'm proud of the people I've met. I'm proud that my children have been born here and brought up here. My husband was born in Luton. So it is my home. And the majority of people in Luton are trying to live and work and support their neighbours. But I'm really aware of some of the negative press that our town gets. The book is supposed to try and rectify some of that. So I'm trying to readdress that perspective. The tragic incidents that Abby and her friends are the representation, really, of the torrid times that we're in. Some of the situations that they find themselves and that they are victims of are a reflection of what I've dealt with in the police. So it shows that how people can, in the worst of times, support each other. And it shows and demonstrates the strength that children and young people have to manage situations, to become who they should be and work through those situations, albeit it's a real shame that some of those situations become normalized. It also shows, especially as you work through that journey that Abby goes on, that the ability to talk, the ability to explain how things are affecting you, can bridge valleys, can help to traverse those terrible situations and move on and grow as people and as in relationships you're in. So that's the idea. I grew in my own life as a result of picking up and moving away and trying to become who I thought I could be. And Abby's doing the same.
Brilliant. It's very insightful, actually. Thank you. So prior to your retirement, you were a police officer and inspector for Bedfordshire Police?
Yes.
What for you were the standout parts of the job? And, well, what made you want to do it?
Okay, so as a police officer for 30 years, I dealt with many incidents. I guess my inspiration to join the police was my own life experiences. I needed to try and get to a position where I could protect and stop them from going through what I went through. As I said earlier, I'd been used as a carer for my father from the age of 10 till the age of 14 when he died. I was bullied at school. Pupils were horrendous, absolutely disgusting to me, and I would not allow that to happen to my own children. I had some quite serious abuse when I was a child. I don't need to go into those right now, but I did. So when I joined the police, in my interview, my opening line when I was asked why they should choose me was that I wanted to protect people. I wanted to give the vulnerable a voice, and I wanted to put baddies away. And those were my actual words, and I'll never forget them. And I thought that was quite insightful for an 18-year-old who was miles away from that. Was something that I've never forgotten. And it's been the reason I've stayed in the job as well. So I spent time in the rape and child abuse unit. I was in the domestic violence unit. I coached and mentored throughout my service. I became a trainer because that felt like the place where I could influence the most people. I did my sergeant's exam. I did my inspector's exam. I became a crisis intervention officer, so people who were threatening suicide, I would go and talk to them. I became a hostage negotiator. I became a firearms commander. All of these things I am so proud to have done. But that shows the personal growth. And that's what's so important to me. That's my raison d'etre. That's why I live. I want personal growth, but I also want the growth of me. And that's why being a coach, being a mentor, being a trainer, being an author, I guess, is something that's so important, is seeing the growth of people and allowing that, facilitating that. So it's something you can't put a price on. And being a police officer in uniform, when you walk into a room, everyone expects you to know the answer. And you can't know all the answers, but training and the camaraderie and the experience that you're afforded as a police officer gives you the confidence to do the right thing at the right time. And that's what policing has given me. It's enabled me to gather that experience, to grow as a person, and then to help others. And that's, you can't, like I say, put a price on that, but it's been so valuable to me.
Brilliant. So you're now an author and artist. What were these existing talents or interests, or are they kind of newly found after your retirement?
Okay, so those titles still make me shudder because they were complete aspirations. I didn't ever think I would achieve the title of author. It's been a lifelong ambition to write a book. In the police, I went to and got involved in so many painful situations where it involved young people. And like I said before, I've got 2 children of my own. So my children were lucky. They had positive influences, but not all children are gifted in that way. They're not. And so often they're in situations that they don't have the facility to get out of those situations. So I wanted to do something that was going to enable them to have the ability to make positive choice. And not that all children are able to do that, and they don't have the facility to make those positive choices. But if the idea of positive choice is introduced to them, it gives them the ability to consider. So in August 2019, I retired from the police. I decided that when I get a spare time, I would then start to plan and write my book. So in November, I sat down and started to think about the characters and what would happen in the book. I contacted a publisher, and the publishing company released my book in March 2020, and it's now available on Amazon. I've got a copy here. This is what it looks like. I'm so proud of it. I really am proud of it. So it's available on Amazon. There'll be more publicity. The official marketing will take place soon. It had to stop because of lockdown. But yeah, like I say, it was a complete aspiration. So it was something I never thought would happen, but again, if you want something to happen, you've got to make it happen. In relation to art, well, art was one of my subjects in college. I did it as an A-level, and I got an E, which is higher than fail. So I've always been passionate about art, but I've not always been any good at art. So I love the process. I love drawing. I love painting, albeit painting is something I've only done for the last 2 years. So it's been a steep learning curve in terms of painting, but I think it's a great way of sending a message and making sure that the art of creativity being a vehicle for ideas, knowledge, inspiration, opinions, I think that's so powerful. And the fact is, art is tasteful to so many people in so many different ways. So if you have a look at things like Pinterest, or you look in Google at art, or you go to art galleries, you will find things that you at those places, but you'll also find things that you really don't like, but other people will. So, art for art's sake is magical, and I love it. I love it. So I would encourage anyone to do art. It's a great escape, and it's a great way of putting your ideas on paper.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you. So you won the International Policewoman of the Year award, beating officers, globally, to this honour for your commitment to fighting crime and protecting the public. So massive congratulations and thank you. Where were you when you found out, and what was the reaction, or how did you feel?
Okay, so when I found out that I won the international award, I was sitting in my car driving with my children in the back. It was in 2000. I think it was in 2013 I found out. Okay, so it would have been around June time. And I was sitting in the car and my phone rang, hands-free, and I said hi, and the regional coordinator for Western Europe was on the line, and she said, "Congratulations, you have been voted as the International Association of Women Police Officer of the Year." And I nearly crashed the car. It was magical. It was just fantastic. It was so, because I'd won the national award and gone to Cardiff to pick up the national award. And it was presented to me by Cressida Dick, who's now the Commissioner for the Metropolitan Police. And it was incredible just to have that award handed to me by her in prestigious circumstances. It was wonderful. But then, because I'd got the national award, the nomination was to the international award nominations, and along with all the nominations from all of the world for the same award. And the award committee had chosen mine above all of those, which would be unheard of. I couldn't believe that I'd won, because it was me, and I'd never won anything in my life apart from these two awards. So the category that had been submitted for the Officer of the Year included things like community, mentoring, leadership, and professionalism. So those are the categories that people had to nominate me for. Now, I found out that the people who had nominated me were members of a team that I was working with in the force control room when I was a firearms commander. So that was outstanding, that who I was managing felt that way about me, that I should get that sort of award. So having got the award, I had to go to South Africa to go and pick up that award, which was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And Cressida Dick came, and she only came to watch me do my speech, and then she had to fly back to the Met. So I couldn't thank her enough, because she was the first person I saw when I came off stage. So that was amazing. And then I immediately joined the IAWP, the International Association of Women Police, and they appointed me as Region 13 coordinator, which meant I had the whole of England and Wales and Western Europe to look after. So I did that for a number of years, and now I am third vice president of the International Association of Women Police, and I've been there 2 years. On the strength of all of this and the fact that I'd won that award, the UN contacted me, and they asked me if I would go to Tajikistan to teach some female border force officers. So there were police officers from Afghanistan and Tajikistan. And they wanted me to teach them in subjects like leadership and critical incident effective communication. So I said, yes, of course. Why wouldn't you? So I went in 2015 and 2016, each for a couple of weeks, to do 2 days of teaching. Well, I think the first one was for a week and the second one was for 5 days. So it was a substantial time. And there were approximately 22 Afghani ladies and I think 4 Tajik ladies. But with the mixture of accents and the mixture of languages, I had to have 4 interpreters. So it was something I'd never done before. But it was incredible. So many opportunities as a result of winning that award and representing, in my view, Bedfordshire. So it was for the world, I guess, and all of that sort of thing. And it was my award, but I put it all down to the work that I'd done in Bedfordshire and in Luton. So it's certainly Luton centrally based for me.
Brilliant. So you worked quite closely with our own James Hinkins on the police badge for Luton Scouts. So how did it feel to give back to scouting? Also, how did it kind of feel when the badge went down as well as it did?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and I've always tried to support the Scouts. Obviously, my children have been through the Scouts, and I've seen the positivity that comes from that. And James has been one of the most influential people in terms of Matthew's development and my Matthew's development. So it's something that I always wanted to do. I wanted to give something back to the Scouts, but I also wanted to do something that wasn't going to be superficial. I wanted to do something that was going to benefit the Scouts themselves and their parents, to be fair. I could have carried on doing what I was doing, which was just arranging things like dog handlers to go in and firearms people and local police officers to go in and introduce themselves and show the Scouts their equipment and their dogs and seeing them train and all of that sort of thing. I could have just carried on doing that. But I kind of wanted to do something that was more beneficial to the individual Scouts themselves, to keep them protected. So whilst I was in the police, I was working with a lot of youths who were disenfranchised, and they were from chaotic lifestyles, unfortunately, and that was not of their making. That was just situations, and it wasn't of their parents' making either. It was just the situation that they were living in. And so when I was talking earlier about personal choice, they felt that they had none. So some children and young adults being manipulated by gangs and being shown a more glamorous lifestyle by gangs was something that was all too easy. And having got into the grasp of a gang, it's incredibly difficult to then remove yourself. But whilst they're in that grasp, they are then used to courier drugs, to carry out weapons, to use weapons, and to put themselves in incredible danger. And with so many youths who were in that position and couldn't get out of it, and parents who were racking their brains how to help their children to be protected. It was torrid. It was horrid. It was just a dreadful situation. So one Sunday morning, I would be sitting at my kitchen table, and I was thinking, how can I make this right? How can I give education? Because education is the key. I give that education to these scouts. How can I inform them about what's out there? And then from that information, they can then make those decisions, make those choices, and protect themselves, hopefully use that education to protect themselves and their friends. And invite the parents as well, so that they can pass that message on and reinforce that message when they get home. So I spoke to James and told him that I had this idea. We spoke at length about how that idea could take shape. We had the idea that the badge itself had to be, the idea of the badge had to be designed by a scout. So we wanted the scout to have certain things. So the scout's got a thin blue line, which represents the thin blue line. It also has the Battenberg. But we wanted it to have emblems or something that linked scouts to police. We just wanted that, and we wanted the scouts to come up with what that could be. And we ran a kind of art competition where they were designing the badge. And there were so many different things. We had tents, we had, I'm sure there were hot dogs, and we had all sorts of things on there. It was quite cool. They were so inventive, really, really inventive. But we needed it to be as simple as we could, because it needed to be what it said on the tin, really. So one particular scout, can't remember her name, but she was so lovely. And she designed it with the scout emblem, the fleur-de-lis emblem, or the arrow. It depends who you talk to, but the emblem on there. And it was really good. So I worked then with my auntie, Gary Forsyth. I worked with Gerald Law, in charge of media. And I worked with James. And we... whilst we were doing the Scout Badge presentations, it was incredible to have that team of people. And I can't thank them enough. If it wasn't for them, this wouldn't have taken place. It wouldn't have taken off. So that's where we are. We wanted to provide that cohesive nature cohesive partnership between the police and the Scouts, so that we wanted to prevent so many children being involved in gangs and being subject to what the gangs wanted them to do. We all were singing from the same song sheet, and it really was powerful. The Scouts themselves picked it up. They loved it. And there was quite a competition who was going to get the first badge, which was, I could cry. It was to see it. It really was. And to see some of their presentations, they did posters, and I got some of those sent back to me, and the posters were incredible and really, really, really insightful. They are intelligent kids. They really are intelligent, and that's our future. So I'm passionate about it. I think that comes across, and hopefully the children will remain passionate about the Scout Badge.
Brilliant. So what could Scouts across Luton do to complete the badge, and how do they get involved?
Okay, so I'm not in the police anymore, as we've already said. So I'm not allowed to do the presentation as a police officer. So because that would be assuming the role, and that I can't do that. So, but what can happen is James has delivered the presentation on his own before, and I'm sure that he's continuing to do so. There was going to be a police officer who from the community policing. I'm not entirely sure if that's continued. I'm hoping it has, but irrespective, should anyone want to get involved in that Scout badge and have that presentation, James has it. So they can get in touch with James and find out about it. Just briefly, if I just tell you what the Scout badge presentation has, because that might be, it might provide an incentive for anyone who's. So there were really comprehensive references to the dangers of drugs and alcohol, knives, the carriage of knives, and what it means by being in association with someone else who's carrying a knife, weapons, not just knives, but weapons, cybersecurity and self-protection, sexploitation, gangs and grooming of any sort. So if anyone, any scout or parent is interested in exploring this, then they should get in touch with James in the first instance.
So, one last question.
Okay.
On a personal sort of basis, why do you believe Scouting is so important for our local communities and on a wider scale?
Okay, all right. So, Scouting provides positive interests for young boys and girls. Okay. It provides skills which will help them develop and develop in a safe environment. So I've been on camps where I've seen all of the work that's done. It was done by James at the time, but done by probably all of the Scout leaders in terms of how to use knives safely. Use them as tools and not weapons. And that's so incredibly powerful. So that skills that will stay with the Scouts, and that respect for the danger of using things that should be tools as weapons. So that's great. They also learn other things. You could call them softer skills, but I think they're more essential. So working in teams, how to communicate, what's acceptable behavior and what's not acceptable behavior, how important it is to respect those people in charge of them, and hierarchy of relationships, which is essential. It's vital for when they grow up and they get jobs, and they have to understand all of us have started from the bottom and work up. So these things are essential, they're vital, and they're taught by the Scouts. So being a Scout is being part of a family. And it's incredible because you're taught loads of skills, but you're also taught that you are respected, that your opinion is valued, and that you can learn loads of things, but you learn at your own pace. No one is sent away, no one is excluded unless it's really bad behavior, but everyone is considered. The amount of inclusion, respect, value, and I can't talk highly enough. You're part of a scheme that's known around the world, and it's known by its reputation of leadership, respect, dignity, and valuing others. So these are all the skills, soft skills, values, morals that we as a society should have. The Scouts embody all of those values. And as a result of that, I will forever be loyal to the Scouts, and I will forever, because they uphold the values I have for my own children, for my own community when I was a police officer, and for the community I live in now. So, yes, I think that the Scouts is incredibly important.
Brilliant, thank you. Some wonderful answers in there. I know I really enjoyed it, so I hope people at home do too. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.